not going to be able to be with us today, and I'm sure some others will come in, but maybe just a beautiful day, and it's caused some diversions. So, so welcome everyone. I'm Jeannie Nelson, the chairman of the Greenways and Open Space Commission, and so happy for everyone to be here and our guests to be here, and of course our number one support partners, the Greenways for Nashville. I'm going to say, I'm sure Cindy's going to say and others are going to say, but just to keep us appreciative of what we're doing and what we want to do in the future. Greenways in Nashville have 111 miles of greenways across Davidson County. Now, if that's not an exciting number, I think this is a time for celebration. I think we just recently had an update to the mileage or review, and so it's exciting. And I know we'll be finding ways to let the rest of the community know that soon. And as Cindy will go through, we have, and you can't ever repeat good news enough, that's my version. We have 6 Greenway segments currently under construction. And we have 8 Greenway segments, 8, that are in the ever important moving along stages of design and permitting. So congratulations to our staff that we all work with from the Greenways division, and Cindy, who is making her way through being let's just say, running into some of the ice that we've had the opportunity to have recently. So anyway, that's just great. And of course, always an appreciation to Greenways for Nashville for what it takes to keep the word out and keep people motivated and excited and having a way to be involved in that for the Greenways division, but more importantly for the citizens of Nashville. So you have minutes attached to your agenda that went out. If everybody wants to take a second, and we don't have, other than the minutes, I'm not sure we have anything today that's going to require a vote or approval. So we can redo these at some point or the next meeting. But everybody, please take a glance down here and make sure that it's consistent with your memory, and certainly those of us who are quoted on the commissioner input, be sure that's what you meant it. Okay, so until we get an affirmation later, is everyone so far so good? Okay. Great. As everyone knows, we have a period of time set out that there can be, it's a public comment period, and those who have signed up, we have the opportunity for you to say something to us. And I think we had some people signed up. Yes. Will you come forth and tell us what you'd like to convey?
Dee Dee Bird here. In case you guys don't know, I'm from District 35, which is where Brookmead Park and Greenway is. And we were so happy to get our park opened last week, and we appreciate Jeannie for being there to speak. We're looking forward to great things for our park and Greenway. We're hoping for a disc golf course. We are trying to involve all our community businesses and our stores that anchor that park, and we are moving forward with transparency and communication, and we look forward to a relationship with you guys, and we thank you so much for helping us get Brookmead back to the community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dee Dee, and I think you have another colleague with you. I don't know if he wants to say anything or just ditto what.
Hey, Ms. Nelson, thank you so much for being at the opening of Brookmead Park. We have some work to do. We're more than willing to go the distance to finish it. I do have a question. I attended the orientation of this board several months ago. And Cindy Harrison made a comment during that all of our open spaces and greenways, that we were going to have to be very cognizant of our unhoused neighbors. And she also made a comment that if they had set up anything on the greenways, that they would not be removed. So I guess I'd like some clarification on, we've lived this experience at Brookmead and at Richland Park, and if there's not a plan to try to keep the open spaces and greenways safe and clean, then I guess my question is, why would we spend donors' money and taxpayer money to do that? That's the only question I have.
So, commissioners, I can speak to that. I don't recall making that comment, but if I can tell you that if we have unhoused communities, just as at Brookmead and other places, the intent is to help those folks find housing, and that is a metro-wide, many divisions who participate in that. Our homeless commission, our Parks Police, Parks Department, lots of nonprofits, lots of folks involved in that. So of course, our intention is to keep our greenways open and clean, but also to have compassion and treat those folks who need assistance and with the resources that we have to provide that assistance.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that. Can somebody just kind of recap or speak into the microphone?
Sure. I don't recall making any statement that said we weren't going to address those issues. We, just like at Brookmead and other places in the city, we have worked with other divisions, as you know, because you all have been involved in that, to help folks who are unhoused to find housing. And we intend to continue to do that. It takes several divisions and across Metro to make that happen.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. And, and I will say that out at the grand reopening of the Brookmead Park, there were some really nice presentations by the chair of the Parks Board, as well as by the Park Police, and some of the ways that they're going to be present and vigilant and work with the community. But I think it is a tribute that that there is that compassionate thought, but also a commitment to finding places for people to live, and that was my takeaway. That will be continued. That will be diligent, and there will be eyes on it. And of course, it's really important to have community involvement around every park and every greenway, and for all kinds of reasons, so that we can keep them the great spaces that they are. So thank you. So Cindy, will you give us an update on Plan to Play? I want to remind those citizens who might be watching that this is a terrific time in the history of Greenways and open space and of our Parks Department when you have a chance to do an update to a master plan. And this master plan, as Cindy will give a little bit more background on for us to be reminded, it will set the framework and plans and directions and where we'll be going for the next years in the future. And that is so critical because those will be the things that will be prioritized, as well as I'm sure some other opportunities that fit into those. But
Right. So we are engaged in the Plan to Play update. So the last update was done in 2017. And since then, we've seen a lot of growth in the city. We've seen a lot of growth in Greenways and opportunities for Greenways. So we're trying to capture all of that information, obviously, and then to go out to the public again and get input and really looking at did the recommendations in 2017, how are those being implemented? What are the challenges and opportunities there? And going forward, what should we be focusing on and how should we implement those goals? At the moment, we in-house are working to finalize the state of the parks, which will be a segment in the overall study. We are preparing a public input survey that will be, sent out, and you all can help us get folks to fill that out. And then we'll have public engagement meetings, and we're still planning those and strategically, making sure that we're implementing those in the way that they need to be implemented. Part of what we're doing as far as Greenways, well, let me take a step back. We did have our committee workshop earlier a few weeks ago to just kind of in-house start thinking about what this commission would like to see and like to recommend to the consultant team. And I think that went really well. I've started going through all the comments that were made, trying to get those into a succinct form to send back to you all. The consultant team will interact with the commission, the Parks Board, many different stakeholder groups. Obviously, through the public input meetings, we'll try to reach as many folks as we can. And some of the things I'll just kind of highlight because I don't have that official listing put together yet. But some of the things we talked about, obviously, we're funding. We have to have funding to build Greenways, and we need to be creative about that funding and not look just towards capital dollars, but other opportunities that we might have. The impacts of growth, as I've already mentioned, how do we conserve open space for the city, and what are some strategic methods for doing that? Safety, of course, and safety, can mean a lot of different things. It can be the design and operation of the actual, physically being out on the Greenway and using it. Things like lighting, which we're adding to many of our greenways, especially in the urban corridor. And how do we address that? We've looked at cameras and additional patrols by Parks Police. I think as of the 1st of this month, the 1st of February, we had at least one officer each day who was out specifically focusing on greenways. And that's been a big improvement. We've added lighting and cameras to some of our trailheads. We're continuing to look at how we can add more. And just kind of looking at my notes, maintenance, of course, maintenance and safety kind of go hand in hand. How are we designing greenways? How are we making updated design decisions so that we have sustainability? For instance, we're moving away from using wooden structures, going to concrete and steel so that those will last longer. I think one of the other topics we talked about was marketing our system and getting the word out about what we're trying to do. And in turn, hearing that voice of the community about where we may have voids, where we can do improvements. Again, what are the challenges and what are the opportunities there?
Okay, great.
So we will, you'll hear from us through, well, you will hear from me, of course, when we're getting ready to do, put the surveys out in the meetings, but publicly, the community will see social media posts, they'll see our website post. You all will look to you to push out that kind of information on your own sites and your listservs. Yeah, just, we need your support to let everyone be aware of what's happening.
Great, thank you. Thank you for reminding us of the some of the emphases that came out of our workshop. And just, I know things haven't been quite set yet, but can you give us some frame about when and what the timing goals are for this plan and the community input? Just anything you can give us that gives us some sense of what to be looking forward to.
Sure. I mean, I hope that we'll be reaching out with a survey here in shortly, like just a matter of a few weeks, maybe a little bit sooner. And the community means we haven't set yet. So we're looking at those locations and how to best arrange those. But the community engagement is the next step, and that's what you'll hear about first.
Okay. And the consultants are assuming that this will be completed during calendar year 25?
Late 25, maybe very early final first of the year. But late 25 is what we're targeting.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So Cindy, you want to give us, some quick updates on projects?
Yeah. So we haven't talked about projects in a while specifically. So I do want to just keep front of mind some of the key projects that are happening. I won't go through all of them, but the two 440 Greenway segments that we've talked about, one is right outside our door, extending the existing 440 down to and into Centennial Park. And we're wrapping up the final responses to comments we've gotten and anticipate that one being sent to procurement within the next month or two. And so that's pretty exciting. That's like about a 2/10 of a mile Greenway extension to the existing 1 1/4 mile. And it connects people not only to Centennial Park, but gives access over to West End and that area, the Vanderbilt area, and is setting us up for connection to the Charlotte Railway Trail project. And that connection would be via the 28th Avenue connector, which has sidewalks and bike lanes already off street there. And so that's one of the bookends of 440 projects. The other is at Sevier Park to Browns Creek Park, where we're connecting Sevier to Gale Lane Park to Browns Creek Park. We're tweaking that a little bit, just trying to make sure we save as many trees as we can, because there's quite a few along the planned route, so we're tweaking it a little bit. That's the last thing that we have to do there. So it will follow, I believe, on the heels of this first of the 440 Park Plaza project down to Centennial, as far as going out to bid for construction. So I mentioned the Charlotte Railway Trail. We've recently met with...
Just real quick on those two. So just so got it in our minds, this call this the Park Plaza one, right outside. So you said that it would go to procurement in the next month or two. So
that's what we anticipate. I mean, we're still
I'm not asking you for a precise date, but my question really is, when it goes to procurement, that's to how long does it stay in procurement?
I can't predict that, honestly. It depends on how many other projects they're having to put out to bid as well. So I don't have an answer for
But
that.
that's what sends it out to bid for construction, is that what you're
Correct.
saying? So
Correct.
it's all designed, it's gone through design and permitting.
Uh-huh.
And so it's gone through those, and then it goes to procurement to put it out to bid, and that will be the only thing we're waiting for once they send it out, and then construction starts. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Do you
just,
have any estimates of cost without getting it out to procurement, just for
We-
the short section that's right in front of us, and
We have.
and also for Browns Creek?
Yeah, we have estimates of cost, but we're going to put it out to bid for pricing. So,
Wouldn't these be a little cheaper because than some of the greenways in the urban sector? Like, for instance, 440 to Browns Creek, you're going through some easements at 440, and it's just this beautiful trail. It's not as
yeah,
many easements or
maybe a
other
little more complicated than you would think. There are
Okay.
retaining walls and safe street crossing. We're building on the Severe project. We've got a boardwalk that's directly adjacent to Browns Creek. So there's some infrastructure there that's pricey. And, here we're looking from Park Plaza down to Centennial. We're looking at a road diet, actually using some of the street where there's parking now. So there's some infrastructure there that it might seem like just a short, simple trail, but it's not an at grade. We're not out in natural area, just scraping off some dirt and laying a trail. There's quite a bit of
You have to work
infrastructure.
with NDOT on both of those, ones with the street diet and one for crossing maybe Craig or coming down Leland Lane?
We work with NDOT on anything that anytime we're in their right of way, or interacting with any bike lane plans or sidewalk plans that they have. We work really closely with them on these kinds of urban greenways. If we were out away from roadways, there wouldn't be that.
Yeah, I
kind of
enjoyed our
interaction.
field trip. When we walked up to Browns Creek, that was a great field trip just to see what it was, but now it's exciting to get towards reality.
Yes.
so
Yes, it
just so I'm clear in my mind, that the first one, the Park Plaza one, is close to going out to procurement. What you said this next month or two, and then the second one, the Severe Park in Browns Creek. I hear from you that we're trying to do some revision to make sure we can save more trees that are there. So, what's your estimate of when that would get to procurement?
I would love to give you a date, Jeannie. I really would. It will come on the heels of this 440 project. So, I can't give you a date yet.
2 to 4 months. I know this
I
is.
know you want a date. I would love to give you a specific date.
I'm just asking for a little range, but if you can't,
Yeah.
you can't. That's it.
Well, there's just a lot of factors involved when we're talking about the kind of infrastructure that we are. As we get closer, I'll be able to give you more of a time frame. But
Okay, that's fair enough. Our job to ask, yours is to answer right when you can, without misleading.
I
So-
don't want to mislead or give expectations that can't be met. I want to be realistic, and we're talking weeks to months, not months to years.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay, on to Mill Creek Greenway.
Were you going to say something about the Charlotte connector? That was,
Well, just because these are all becoming interconnected more and more, and these 440 projects, this Park Plaza, even though it's not directly connected to the Charlotte Railroad Trail, it will be all connected. And so we met a week ago with the Cheatham County Rail Authority, who will be granting, we need easements from them, and had a really good meeting there. So we're working through this in more detail. I feel like we've made some good progress there. And there's so that's the next step. We have to have a place to put the trail and an agreement for that when we don't own the land or have anything in place. So that's what we're working on there.
Do you feel like you've gotten the easements that you need with various landholders on
Well,
the
that's-
project along the trailers that besides the Cheatham rail, but maybe some other, were there any other easements that you need to get that finished?
To get the Charlotte Railway Trail finished, or there will be some additional easements. But for the first phase, which we're looking at kind of bookends, I think we're in good shape.
Are you planning on starting like at the 28th side or down at Rosa Parks or both sides?
Those are our bookends. We're actually
Those are your
looking at
bookends?
trying to work on both ends. So connecting Frankie Pierce Park to the farmer's market at one end, at the east end, and at the west end, connecting 28th Avenue over to 21st Avenue North Street, 21st Street.
28th to 21st, is that what you're saying?
28th to 21st,
That's good.
roughly, yeah.
Can you, will the end of the rail and trail come right into the front door of the farmer's market? Is that the intent right there at
The
that light?
intent is to bring people right to the farmer's market. So
Like there's a light right there, maybe there's a crossing. I'm just mad. I see where it might be.
yeah, well, we're
That's what you're trying.
yeah. You're asking me for details I can't quite give yet, but that is
It's
that
pretty
is what we're
exciting
working on.
because, I mean, just getting from there, if you can really get there, and just getting down to Frankie Pierce, that takes you right into the Gulch Greenway. And so you create a connector essentially almost from Division Street and 6, where that all the way through the Gulch, all the way through Capitol View, all the way,
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much.
Our Greenway currently in the Gulch ties into 11th Avenue North, and from there are sidewalks and bike lanes that take you down to Laurel Street. So, so from Laurel to the farmer's market, if you can think of it that way.
It's great. It's all really exciting. Thank
Yeah.
you.
The Mill Creek Earthwork Project, this is the final, this is not a new greenway, and it's not closing any greenways. It is taking care of some permitting requirements where we've got some fill that needs to be moved out of the floodplain, just wrapping up some of the permitting that was done with that project. And that is weather dependent, of course, and we've had so much rain that it needs to dry out for that earth to be moved around. But again, that greenway will stay open. But just want to make folks aware that project is happening. And another one that I'll mention because it is moving forward is the Harpeth River Greenway at Ariza Bellevue. And that's it's a partnership with the developers of that multifamily development. And it's a project, the Greenway will go underneath a railroad bridge. It's not a tunnel, and connect to the Greenway that we have in place out there. It connects to a pedestrian bridge. It'll continue on, and we'll have access, both Greenway access and vehicular access to the 60 plus or minus acres in that bend that were donated to us several years ago. The vehicular bridge is part of the development, the residential development that's happening there, but it gives us that access that we need to that 60 acres. And then along with the Greenway development, we'll be acquiring through donation from the developer 20 to 23 acres of open space there in the bend. So it's beautiful, and they're designing this. We're overseeing the design, and they'll build it as well. So,
Who is the developer?
gosh, if you hadn't asked me that, I would have been able to tell you.
I'm not
It's on
asking.
the tip of my tongue. I can see their faces, Mark. I'll let you know who it is. I'm just blanking on it right now, but
That's a really exciting project.
it's
I
a very
must
exciting
admit. It's-
project, one that we've strived for many, many years, and to have that access that we need.
Yeah. And the Harpeth River just basically goes
It's beautiful.
around, and it's just,
And the fact that we, have been able to conserve, really, it'll be close to probably a little bit over 80 acres in that bend, is a really great amenity for the city. And then the last project I just wanted to mention is a project that Joanne's been working on with Metro Water Services, tree planting along our greenways. And I think it was Monday that you all staked trees. So the first planting is happening at Mullins Park on Whites Creek Greenway. And there's a big open space there that will keep some of that open space, but a real opportunity to add tree canopy in the riparian zone and along the greenway that can use some shade and some additional habitat. That project will be happening in phases. This first phase is planting 58 trees. I think there's an opportunity there to have 2 more rounds of planting with 58, 60 more trees at each of those phases. And then the other project that we're partnering on with them is the Stones River Greenway at Heartland Park, and adding some shade along that greenway that, takes you on over to Ravenwood and all the way out to Percy Priest Dam. But this is at the park area.
It's where the soccer field is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's a stretch there that, could use some trees.
Yes. Well aware of that, but
Okay. Especially if you've ridden all the way from the dam and it's summertime, you're looking for a little shade along the way.
a water fountain there would be nice too.
Yes, I agree.
What is the status on the Stones River boardwalk reconstruction then?
I know that our maintenance has been working with a contractor and finalizing the design. It will be repaired. I'll have to let you know what the timeline is, Joe. But they've pulled together a detailed cost on that, and I think they're pretty close to being ready to get started.
Well, that was great, Cindy. I know there are a whole bunch more with things going on at all kinds of different stages, but I appreciate you pulling out these that are right in front of us.
Too? I think maybe it was last meeting, maybe it was Plan to Play, but you're mentioning trying to ready for planning for the rest of the 440 Greenway. Mm-hmm. So this is essentially, I think, taking from Sevier Park to West End.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any progress on that? Or I know some of it had to do with a request for funding, and I was just checking to see if any of the commissioners, or particularly council people, could be helpful in procuring the monies that you need for that planning. And then is there anything that TDOT or NDOT can do to help to make that a reality?
Well, we will be looking for requesting capital funding. I anticipate that in the next capital funding round. And if TDOT announces any additional grants, then we'll certainly look at those grants for planning and construction. But right now, those aren't available. So
they're not making grants, or just making their budget available?
I'm not
just
sure
to
what
do
the grant
this?
status is at the moment on federal funds. Those funds come down from the feds, and they're administered through the state. So,
But TDOT hasn't. What I'm hearing you say is they haven't advertised that they have a grant process that would impact this.
not currently.
Okay. So, any other questions? Jenny, you've got anything? Okay. Joe, anything else? Okay. So I guess I was just in sort of a couple of things that struck me as you went through these different pieces. One is this reminder to all of us of the complexity of these urban projects, or this urban big vision of connecting our urban city and having ways for people to be outdoors, since we're now residents moving so much more into the urban center, as well as the transportation end. And it's just, but I'm really going back to the complexity of pulling off any of it, and our being sure we really appreciate that from what that means for our Greenways team. And that's compared with, as Cindy said, you know, when we have land along a river or a stream that, you know, it all has some complications to it, but the difference between that dirt and that land being there and you go pave it, obviously do other things with it, but the contrast in those two things is huge. So I applaud our city and our parks and greenways for having the nerve and the courage to do what we really need to do for our people right this minute on the urban world. It's slower, it's harder, but it's really critical. So thank you. And I just wanted to say that really. And the other piece is that when we talk about these segments, I mean, the goal has been, and I assume will still be in the new plan, is to connect many, many things up. And it takes segments. You can't just kind of come and, okay, we were going to get this huge arc that's going to happen at once. It works in strategic segments, and many of these that you mentioned, and you did a good job of pointing to where they will connect up, and that's something I think we also all need to keep in mind. And so, okay. Thank you. All right. So do you have some further on the Brookmead Greenway?
Yeah, I mean,
reporting?
we've talked about that a little bit, but we had a really great opening, very good turnout, and it's a beautiful greenway. It's a beautiful space in the middle of a lot of commercial and development. The community and the Parks Department, and particularly the Maintenance Department, many metro agencies, again, lots of community involvement in getting that reopened, and encourage everyone to go out and check it out. It's a beautiful view of the river. It's very peaceful down there. It's at the end of the trail, there's an overlook, Kelly's Point, so there's historical significance there with interpretive signage, and it's just a beautiful spot, and it's short at this time, but it's beautiful. So we appreciate everyone who came out for the opening. And Jeannie, thank you for giving our welcoming remarks that day. And there was just a lot of community involvement, and we really appreciate it.
Really striking, that point looking out across the river and the walk down to it, and it's not like it's all flat land, and it's just it really struck me so much more than I ever expected it to. So congratulations to everyone who's been involved, and the whole neighborhood, and circles out from the immediate neighborhood. And
and our folks, particularly as, again, our maintenance department just worked really, really hard, and we're very appreciative of that. So
I was so glad you all had so many of them out there. That was great too. So okay. So now Greenways for Nashville. Karen Gregg, who is the interim executive director of Greenways for Nashville.
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry, I'm coming down with the cold, so please pardon me. I will make this brief because I know that your time is valuable. I have two main topics. One, before you have a little card with Brad the Rabbit. That is to remind you that Richland Creek Run is on March 29th. And it is one of our two major events. And I hope to see everybody here. You can walk, run, individual, team. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have an after party for those who participate at ML Rose. So again, if you have other people that you would like to pass out postcards, please let me know. And I'm more than happy to get them to you or to them.
And she has signs too.
And I have yard signs.
Yard signs
as well.
Yeah.
So if you have a place that you could put that, please let me know after the meeting. And then the other is the update on our trailheads. They are for phase 2. They are currently in production. They're being printed in Florida, and we are hopeful that they will be installed in the spring. And those are for Richland Creek, 7 Mile, and Mill Creek. Any questions? Those are the two main things.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
I was just curious, Greenways for Nashville, have you, I know there's been discussion in the past about doing some fundraising for actual Greenways. I know that was talked about with the rail and trail, for instance. Is there any active conversation about that and when and if that will happen again?
Not at this time, but it is, we're in a transition period, so we will be having that discussion. It's just not going to be this month.
So I'll reinforce, please, everyone watching, everyone here, please put the Richland Creek Run up on your social media and however else you communicate through your groups, especially the newsletters of organizations you're a part of. It's great. It really reminds everybody who goes that the Greenways are for all the different generations, because you've got little kids, it's really fun. And then you've got your really fast runners, and then you've got your walkers, and it's just so please go straight home and send out to everybody you know, because it's a great day, and mostly it sends that message of how much we all care and how much we want to be involved and engaged, and we want to encourage other people to. And for our commissioners, when you get there, and treat you to be big ambassadors while you're there. So, okay. So do we have Metro departments who want to talk to us about how we're, anything they want to talk about, but also how things are intersecting, how we're intersecting with what you're doing and helping, or you're helping us?
Let's put me on the spot. That's okay. I was going to say I was out a few weeks ago on Mill Creek Greenway. It was about 10 degrees outside, and I was thrilled to come across like 24 other people whose sanity I would question, who were out running and enjoying the day. It was great. Okay, so I'm Donald Anthony with the Planning Department. Planning Commission meets tomorrow at 4 p.m. It's a relatively light agenda, number of items wise. I'm not going to comment on magnitude of items. Feel free to go to Development Tracker to see more about the items on the agenda. I wanted to update you again. We talked a little bit last time about the countywide ecological conservation strategy. A vendor or consultant was chosen. I just went on the Metro's procurement site a few minutes ago to see what the status is, and it's still not showing awarded yet, so I think I'm not quite free to say who it is, but I will tell you that we're sort of hoping to get the best of both worlds here, where we have a national lead consultant who is going to utilize a number of local sub-consultants. And so it's always great when you get that, because you get somebody with a very subjective sort of outside opinion, and at the same time you get the local expertise and knowledge. So we're looking really forward to that. That study will be coordinated with a number of other Metro studies that are ongoing or planned. And in 2 months' time, I'll be able to come back and give you hopefully the name of that consultant and sort of how that process is going to play out. We'll have more information on the scope of that study at that time. And then I also wanted to update you. I mentioned last time about our Cane Ridge Antioch study. We had to put that on hold for a short time due to terrible situation at Antioch High School, and we decided it just wasn't quite the right time to go out to the community yet. We are gearing up for our first public meetings. We will do a public meeting in the Cane Ridge community and a public meeting in the Antioch community at the end of March, and we are finalizing right now the dates and venues for that. So we'll get that up on our website here in the next few days as well.
That's great.
And which greenways or parks are in proximity to the study that you're doing in Antioch and Cane Ridge?
Let's see, we have Mill Ridge Park, Mill Creek Park, Orchard Bend. What am I missing? I'm missing something. Oh, Cane Ridge Park.
Yeah. Cecil Ray Park, the community center of that little park.
That's right. That's right. Quite a few.
Is the Mill Ridge Park, is that also going across, is it Old Hickory? I can't remember what the street that runs between Mill Ridge and some other lands that they have. Is that talking about trails and other things? And
We're definitely going to talk about greenways and trails throughout that study area. Yeah, and actually Cindy is already, we met with Cindy and Logan and some other folks back a few weeks ago to sort of get some early input on that. And after we go out and have this first round of community meetings, we'll come back and follow up with some of what we're hearing and go from there.
Donald, can you may have said this at our meeting before this, but can you talk a little bit more about the ecological conservation strategy? I mean, I know once the consultants come in, you'll be able to say a lot more, but what are your goals? What are you all trying to do? And then also how it's going, you anticipate it would be, how it would work with the plans to play that's coming up.
So during the procurement phase, when they put out the request for qualifications, it was a very, very, very broad scope. And so it covered evaluating current conditions, setting conservation priorities for the county, creating an implementation toolkit, and then making recommendations for any other actions that Metro should take. So that's very, very, very broad. Mm-hmm. And so the process right now, where the committee, the procurement committee, where they're working now with the chosen consultant, they are actually focusing right now on narrowing that scope and figuring out exactly what each of those items mean, and then a time frame associated with each of those items as well. So right now it's still in this broad state, but here in the next few weeks it'll get much more focused.
Yeah. So I guess sort of when I narrow it down, in that we are the Greenways and Open Space Commission. Of course, when you talk about the big picture of conservation in our county, the two. You get my drift. There's somewhere an overlap. Absolutely. Or an ability to help with, directional settings on open space or that kind of thing, and certainly of implementation tools. So how are you all thinking about that?
So our design studio section is going to head up this study, and I think our project management section is going to help with that as well. But I do know that they fully intend to work alongside the Plan to Play update and be involved in that. So I don't know how exactly that cooperation works yet, but I know that we'll definitely have more details in a few weeks.
Okay.
But I know it's extremely important.
It's on people's minds of the two. Yep. Two branches of government, right, who would be working on these kinds of things. Right. I mean, you all are more in the planning world. We are in planning and implementation. Right. And I'm sure I'm saying all this wrong, but I'm doing it as a layperson of how these things fit. And
so planning, Metro Water Services, and DOT will all be stakeholders, and Plan to Play will be coordinating and getting input. So the timing on the study is really good.
Yeah, it's exciting. The more great brains we can have working on it across government and outside consultants and perspectives, all of that is really exciting. But just wanted to.
Are you guys involving the Highland Rim group, the group that's looking at the biggest urban forest in the world? In this it's whatever. If you're looking at ecological surveys, I'm not sure what that group is bringing forth the discussion, if anything.
I will definitely pass that along to our design studio folks and let them know that if they have not reached out, that they should.
I think it's Justin. Who's the guy who's Justin Wilson?
No, not just, it begins with a G. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think they know. I think
sure
the
they know.
planning department knows about it, right? But it's good to raise, of course. Anybody, anything else? Joseph? Jenny? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, Donald. Appreciate your being here. You all are an integral organization for us, and we really appreciate that. And you're coming. Okay. The next thing on our agenda is commissioner input, and I know that we've had fairly good input as things have moved forward on this, but other topics that either Cindy wants to be sure she gets us to address, or other things that you all want to raise or ask about, or be sure, I think specifically we said wanted to make sure this was on our agenda every meeting. If there are things that you want to ask Cindy to look at bringing to us, or things you want to have considered to be on, maybe not some future agenda, that's a part of what we want you to say, or special things you want addressed. So, as our council spokesman here, and I just gotten something from Clay. It just seems like the world is springing out with activity and things demand that he couldn't come. That he couldn't come today. I think that it's kind of like we're all coming out of hibernation, and the competition for time is harder. So.
Well, there's not a whole lot right now. We did just put in our requests from our, in the CIB, the capital improvements budget, and that was just scored, and several Greenways projects or connections to Greenways actually scored very highly. So now we just need to put some pressure on our illustrious mayor to see that he actually puts that into the capital spending plan next go round. So council members each get 100 points to spread amongst all the projects that individual council districts put into the capital improvements budget. And so several things, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they scored very well.
Well, I'll check that out.
Yes, check that out.
Great, that's
So-
exciting.
The capital improvements budget is in the springtime or the fall?
The capital improvements budget, which is us, is in the springtime. We just did that. The capital spending plan, which is the actual how money is allocated and spent, comes out in the fall. And so Freddie will bring that up, Mayor O'Connell will bring that up in the fall. He'll put that together and after we get out of this fiscal year.
And in that vein, I'm curious what, if anything, which should we be requesting as commissioners, Greenways, that we think should be funded and recommending them to that budget, or recommending them to council so that they get in the budget, or recommend them to the mayor's office?
Actually, things that are funded in the capital spending plan have to be in the capital improvements budget. So yes, it's very worthwhile to talk to council members in specific districts if you have a Greenway issue that is specific to a district and also to the at-larges. There are a few requirements to get something into the CIB, including that the project has to cost more than $50,000, and it has to have an expected lifespan of a certain amount of time. And each individual council member is supposed to only put in things that affect their districts, while the at-large can do all. And then after everyone submits their requests, the entire document goes out to the council, and people, again, you get 100 points. You can spend no more than 50 points on any particular project. And you can allocate your points throughout all of the projects from all districts. And then those are scored and given to the administration, and hopefully the mayor's office is using that as a guide to choose projects that are funded in the next capital spending plan. So it's kind of a whole process.
So this
And
is
Cindy, is there anything else that you'd add to that? Are there things that we should be doing as commissioners to recommend to you and Parks to then request? I don't know, what do you want to push
Yeah,
from
well,
greenways and open space so that
particularly-
council people
particularly at
consider
this
it.
time with Plan to Play, we're taking a look at our priorities that were set in 2017, adding anything that might not have been in there or that needs, the opportunities have come up. So we develop our own capital request and our CIB items annually, just as the council does, and all that gets kind of put together.
Into the cauldron.
yes.
Stir it around.
Yes.
Like,
So if there are specific opportunities that we're not aware of course, y'all know where I am. And Plan to Play is going to give everyone an opportunity to identify those. I think our CIB list is pretty robust. But
We probably have a backlog.
the CIB is a 5-year out. Make sure I said that correctly, plan. So, and it's more projects there than can be completed, I would say, in 5 years. But it's a plan, it's a way to move projects forward and to anticipate cost.
right. And I will say that many of the things that ended up in the CIB, we were encouraged not to put points towards because they're more for Plan to Play. They would actually be better attended to by being in Plan to Play on updates, because those will be two different pots of money, basically. So smaller projects that could be addressed in Plan to Play.
So, okay, so back to layperson here to just on the steps there's steps that are going on right now.
Yes, we voted in the last 3 weeks, I think. We put in our things, and last week there was a special called meeting of planning and budget, I think, and we went through the priorities and how things were prioritized this year and saw which projects received the most votes. So again, that's really only a guide for the administration in terms of how they want to allocate money in the capital spending plan, but it is something that shows the priorities of council members and what they want specifically for their district and for the city overall. That doesn't ever mean anything's going to get funded. There were projects in the CIB that had been there for 18 years. We were also, we've kind of cleaned up the CIB. There were a lot of projects that actually weren't since I've been in office, for example, there were things in there that would not actually be funded through the CIB, but they were in there because people didn't understand what it was. But there are projects that are in there for many, many years, because if they're not, priority, or you don't have the administration who wants those things to be priority, with the limited money we have, they're not going to be funded. But it provides guidelines.
So if I understand this right, in order for something to be a candidate for the capital spending plan that's usually in the fall, it has to be in the capital improvements budget.
Correct.
So if something is not in there, it doesn't.
Correct.
No can go unless,
Correct.
Rain,
Yes.
something, lightning.
Which is why so many things were in the capital, in the CIB, because people wanted to make sure that they could be, even.
So right now, what's going on in the system is the council is, you just correct me if I'm wrong, this is again layman's translation, the council members and the planning and budget committee has taken the council members' suggestions, and you all are coming up with what you're going to send to the mayor to consider to put in the CIB, in the improvement?
It goes en masse to the mayor's office and as something that they use as a tool to decide the capital spending plan. So we are simply ordering of the projects that are in there. We are ordering what our priorities as a council.
That are already in the committee. So it's not in a matter of adding new things to the capital improvement.
When we each individually do our CIB, we can add new projects in our district. We can remove projects that are no longer needed. And then that all goes to planning, who puts it together in a comprehensive list. And then we have our point system where we vote. And again, that's just to provide the administration with guidelines in terms of to reflect the priorities of the council. Like the council thinks improving libraries is very important. So it got, hundreds of points to improve this library or do this, that, or the other thing. So it provides, then it's handed to the administration that they can use as a guide, but they're not bound by it. It's just a guide.
Yeah, so,
But that's the first step for anything that you want funded in the capital spending plan.
you've got to be in the capital
In
improvement
the
budget.
capital improvements budget, correct.
And so this is the process leading to adding things to the capital improvements budget? Or you all are just giving your input to that's in there?
It's both.
Okay.
We are sent the CIB from the previous year several weeks before we have to make any determination about what our priorities are. And each individually we can take or add to our
Yeah.
district. And then, again, that is compiled by planning and it's sent back to the council so that we can expend our points, which then simply gives a guideline to the mayor so that when he comes up with the capital spending plan, he can see what the priorities of the council are. They may not be the priorities of the administration. That's solely up to the administration to decide what actually gets funded.
Okay. So there's nothing we should be doing right now, you all are, is that the
Well, next spring, if there's other projects that we want in there,
next spring?
yes, you tell the council member you'd like that added to the CIB. So when it comes around again, we can add that to the CIB if it's not already in there. The CIB has many, many projects in there.
Yes.
But then
It's
Metro
large.
Parks also can make recommendations to the mayor's office through plan to plan.
Right.
That's
You have your own
different.
CIB, correct?
We do.
Yeah, they have their own CIB, so they're putting in project. Each department, doesn't each department, Cindy? Has
Yes.
their own CIB.
And so wouldn't it make sense for commissioners just to be having conversations with Parks and saying, is that in there?
That's good, but having it come from other
councilperson
directions
is
also
good too,
helps.
or
You know,
both.
just push, you
Yeah,
see that
both.
it's priority for much broader than just, one department. It's priorities of
So
many.
how do we know
yeah.
what's in there right now?
The CIB, is that posted on the Nashville.gov website? Yeah, it's on the Nashville.gov website. And I believe the updated one should be by now.
But
Right.
you know all of it, right?
Yes, by hand, but we would go over 1 o'clock. So I
Never
mean,
mind.
I can't really tell you all the projects that are in there.
One on the list is Cornelia Park.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the top priority.
For what?
I don't know what does that involve in.
That was the number one, I believe, for this year. It got the most points from all the council members, was doing improvements to Cornelia Fort.
Improvements?
Yeah.
It probably needs a bathroom, probably.
Yeah, bathroom and a couple other
Okay.
things.
Okay.
But it's posted on the Nashville.gov website.
So Nashville, so that's our sort of bottom line. If
Yeah.
you want to know some more, look at the Nashville Gov.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that we have a master plan. It was in 2017. We're looking at that. We're updating it. New opportunities come up, and I'm sure there were new opportunities in this one that will get included. And so we have a roadmap. It needs to be evaluated regularly and updated as needed. But the CIB, the items that the departments put in the CIB, or Parks Department, particularly our Greenways division, we have a roadmap, and those are aligned with that, so that it makes sense and there's continuity. And some of those projects, yes, that as you said, they're going to be in there for a while because every project is not going to be accomplished in a year or even 5 years. Some of them are just longer range, but we're not starting from scratch. So, and y'all are aware of plan to place master plan. The City Central Greenway, for instance, is something, within the last 5 years or so that became more of a, I don't want to say reality, but as greenways were built out and the connectivity that became apparent, the opportunities there kind of drove that branding of this loop system. We're still building out the water-based rail system, greenway system. That railway trail's on my mind. The urban cores become more and more, more and more opportunities there because of development, but there are other places outside along the waterways that are also seeing more opportunities because there's more activity happening. And so.
Can I ask another question? This is different, but say, what if one of our small companies like Oracle or Amazon wanted to give $5 million to connect a particular greenway because they want it close to their campus, for instance? Does that come through Greenways for Nashville? If they wanted to make a donation, would it have to come through a nonprofit, and then you guys would receive it? And could you then facilitate, like, let's say they wanted to do the bookend at 28th to 21st or something, whatever that cost, and somebody made a donation. Could you receive that money? And then what would happen to the money that you already had allocated for that, assuming it's already in a capital budget, could you reallocate it to something else?
So when donations are made, they go through a process. The park board approves those or doesn't. Then it goes to Metro Council. So, people aren't just buying projects, but they certainly can donate funding directly to Metro through a nonprofit that then would be designated for that project. There are a lot of things to consider there. Is that project ready to move forward? Do we have the place to put a greenway? There's a lot to consider in something like that. But certainly, if we have multiple funding sources, it makes our dollars go farther.
Yeah, I see that in the plan to play, like looking for multiple funding sources, and that would be corporate and philanthropic type giving, and it sort of speaks to the fundraising plan. But it sounds like you'd want to dedicate it to a greenway that's mostly ready to go, and then you could.
Well, we have to physically have a place to put the greenway, and it should be a greenway that's planned and identified, or at least that makes sense, and we would evaluate that.
Let's say somebody wanted to build the Browns Creek. Like, okay, we'll take care of that. Do you then receive those funds because it's ready to go, and then you turn around and say, we're going to be able to reallocate the money that we had for that to another greenway? How does that work?
Well, reallocation of funds is a council process, so it's not something that we could just decide to do. And again, there's several layers to a project being ready. Funding, of course, is important. We have to have the land to build a greenway. So either we have to own it or have an easement for it or a license agreement. It has to be a feasible route. There are a lot of things to consider. It's not just the dollars, but certainly the dollars are critical.
So really, you'd have to reallocate it. So again, I know you're going through feasibility study and it's getting to procurement. If you got something for that, then you would try to find the next greenway that had the easements and was ready to be approved, and you could say, we'll put that in. We'll put that aside, and when that gets ready, then we'll use it for that instead. I don't want somebody to give some money or think about it and then not have the monies replaced in a capital budget. Like you'd want them to be paying for something, and then we get something else built because they gave the money for something. That's what I'm thinking right now.
So I think it's a little more complicated than that. If we have funding that's specifically dedicated to a certain project item, whatever, that's what it's for. We don't just move money around. Council can do that, but that's a process. It's not just an automatic. If someone was going to donate money, they would have a conversation with the Parks Department. It would need to make sense, in the bigger scheme of what the department has planned, what's been funded already. There have to be discussions, and it wouldn't just take money, and that's why there's the process of going to the park board, going to the council, and making sure that whatever the expectations are realistic and fit the overall initiatives of the department.
Yeah. This is great. This is sort of we've been having an educational session on how Metro government works in many ways, and many of these things are I would put under the phrase safeguards for being sure that both our public monies and whatever private monies we might be so lucky as to, or grants from other than Metro government, that they're used appropriately and used when and how we're able to implement and actually use them. I mean, I guess one of the things that strikes me is that if we had, a staff of 200 working on Greenways, then we could probably, use every dollar on every segment all around the county going on, but that's not reality. So it's you get into a serious management challenge and setting of priorities that has to occur. And but I think I say that because I believe that, but I think it's also educational for us to understand that it, sort of what these different steps are, and be aware so we can be helpful in whatever ways we can be. So, any other comments, questions? Yeah.
This is neither a comment nor a question. This is actually just the Mill Creek cleanup officially ended about 2 weeks ago. If you all remember, during the flood in 2020, a warehouse in Space Park South, a wall collapsed, and Mill Creek was filled with debris from several different companies. But the bulk of the debris came from R.J. Schinner, which was a restaurant supply company. They admitted that it was their debris and they started a cleanup, but when the bill hit $1 million, their insurance company pulled the plug. It has taken 2.5 years to get them through the court system and made a settlement. Their secondary insurance company agreed to pay for the rest of the cleanup, and they came and were here for 10 weeks working along the creek. They did 7.6 miles of the creek all the way down to where it dumps into the Cumberland. I toured the last week. The creek looks incredible. If you had seen the creek with all the debris,
Yes.
It was very bad, and it looks incredible. There is still quite a bit of debris that is just in the creek from other sources, which they were not tasked with cleaning up because the insurance company would not pay for the disposal. But they are giving me a map of areas where there's a lot of debris, so hopefully we can get some of the volunteer groups that have been cleaning up on quietly at my request, so that the insurance company would not consider that Metro was going to volunteer to clean up the creek, even though we did have people out continuing. But now we know very specific areas where there is debris and sources of debris, so hopefully we can get some of those groups out to clean up those areas. But the banks I was shocked at how well the banks looked, how beautiful they looked.
Thank you so much for that report, Jenny, and for your work on that, and the community at large. My goodness. That was
bad.
Quite a challenge. And if you saw it right after it happened, even not right after it happened, for a while, it was an eye-opener.
Horrifying.
It was,
Horrifying.
Did you have to get, I was over at Whitsett Park at one time, you had debris up in the trees, were you having to pull that down too?
Yes, and they had to do that all by hand because we weren't allowed to cut the trees. We weren't allowed to do anything on the banks because the banks could collapse. On the bed, we have an endangered species, so everything had to be done by hand, which is why it was so important. And
But
the
it looked pretty dang good when I was out there. So.
Yeah. They did a really great job. And I know the first cleanup, they took out 730 cubic yards of debris. And they're giving me the numbers on what they picked up this time. And I will say that there is also some debris from the 2010 flood that is now visible. And if we can get parks in there to clean that up, I mean, there's giant dumpsters sitting along the banks and things. If we can get parks in there to clean that up, now is the time to do it. And they also have to clean out some areas to get access. So if we have a place for greenways, they've done a lot of the cutting down of, of the trees and the foliage. So it's available, but there's more to be done, but they have done an incredible job. So I'm really, really pleased. Really, really pleased.
Thank you so much for that. And please share that with everyone as we will as well. But thank you, everyone.
That's great. Well, it's a testament to community
And I wanted to say something about Fort Negley and that whole park system. It sounds like the master plan is coming together, and it sounds like getting close to it seems like there's funding in place, maybe $19 million to get that thing started, if I'm not mistaken, and the green building's been purchased. It's pretty exciting. It's a 68-acre urban park system that's getting ready to be rejuvenated, hopefully take down some of the fences and open up some green space to the public that sorely needs it. I'm sure that's been a big planning piece that you have
Our
been
planning
involved in.
division is, I have some involvement. Our planning division has headed that up, and they've done a phenomenal job.
That's great. A lot of great things going on, and this is a time for hearing and thinking about the great things and going local with things that we can have some impact on. So thank you all. Thank you for serving on this commission, and thank you for your energy, and thank you for our great Greenways staff and Greenways for Nashville and every visitor who ever wants to come. Thank you.
Are we adjourned?
We are adjourned. On how wonderful thou art.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.